All right, hello. My name's Andrea, or Drea for short. Today is Saturday, October 10th, 2020, and this is episode 4 of the Drea's Hook podcast. If you're watching here live with me on Instagram, welcome. If you're catching the replay on IGTV, welcome. And if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. So as always, I have way too much to talk about, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. I hope everybody's doing well right now, making sure I'm waving at people as they come in. All right, so I have a new project that I started this week, and I've been kind of hyping it up for a couple of weeks now, so definitely be sure to go check out episodes 2 and 3 if you want a little bit of background. But this week, the holiday Tunisian Crochet Along, or TCAL by TL Yarn Craft started. So it's basically the stitch sampler blanket that has 20 different squares, and the TCAL runs for 6 weeks. So for the first 5 weeks, 4 squares are released per week, along with like different tutorials and things like that. And then on the 6th week, it's all of the finishing techniques. So like seaming the squares together, blocking the squares, and then adding a border to the final blanket. So this was the first week, and I got a pretty decent start on it. So before I get too far into the squares that I managed to make, I wanted to do a quick recap of the yarn that I'm using. So I am using Knit Picks or We Crochet Brava worsted yarn. It's 100% acrylic, and I really like this yarn. So this blanket uses 4 different colors. So my color A is this beautiful purple called Mulberry, and I'm like kind of upset because I haven't had a chance to use it yet, and I did look ahead a little bit, and it looks like this color isn't going to come up until week 3. So I have to hold out for a couple more weeks before I'm able to use this color. But purple is my favorite color, and this is like the perfect purple. Like when I say that I like purple, this is what I have in mind. So I knew that I had to put it into the blanket somewhere, somehow. My color B is this kind of bright yellow gold called Caution. It's a little brighter than what I usually go for, but I still really like it. Color C is Cream. It's definitely a little warmer than what I would usually go for, but it works up very nicely. So I'll show y'all in a couple minutes how nicely it works up. And then color D is Silver, a nice kind of medium gray. Lovely purple, Mulberry, nice. Yeah, this is like a really good purple, and I really like it. It looks like my skeins are getting a little messy here. So yeah, let me just hold up all 4 colors real quick so we can see them together. I think that they go really well together. I really like this palette. It looks like a lot of people are kind of going for more holiday type colors. Like I know the blanket that Tony originally made was kind of like, it had blues and grays in it, so it was kind of like this winter wonderland frosty thing, and a lot of people are using kind of like red and green for like a more Christmas theme. But as I mentioned in episode 2, I want this blanket to be something that I can use year round, so I didn't really want to go heavy on the kind of seasonal theme. And they're really, even though it's called like a holiday Tunisian Crochet Along, there aren't really that many references to the holidays on it. Like I think that there's a square that has a tree on it, and like that could be perceived to be a Christmas tree, but it doesn't have any ornaments on it. It doesn't have any ornaments on it or anything like that. So I feel like you could get away with just saying that it was a normal tree and therefore not holiday themed. So yeah, I wanted something that would work year round, because I know that this blanket is going to be a lot of work, and quite frankly, it's been a lot of work already. So I want to be able to use it year round and get good use out of it. So yeah, as far as like the way the colors are distributed, the cream and the silver, color C and D, are used the most, whereas colors A and B, which are my Mulberry and Caution, are kind of used more as accent colors. And I've actually already basically used 1 whole skein of this cream color. These are 100 grams and where's the yardage? Yeah, 218 yards and 100 grams. So it looks like each square uses about 50 grams of yarn, but that's kind of getting into the weeds. So now I want to show the squares that I've made so far. So the first square, and I'm just going to warn y'all in advance, since I'm using this cream color, the lighting is the camera is perceiving that as white, and so when I hold this up, the lighting is going to automatically adjust. So definitely an interesting lighting situation. So yeah, my first square that I made was called the bias square. And this is probably one of my favorite squares that I've made so far. So it uses the Tunisian simple stitch, which if you're not familiar with Tunisian crochet, Tunisian simple stitch is kind of the most basic stitch that you can use in Tunisian crochet. So it's kind of the equivalent to like a single crochet in regular crochet or like a knit stitch in knitting. So it's definitely one of the first things that you learn. But what makes this square unique is that it's worked on a bias, meaning that it's worked corner to corner. And so that really makes it interesting. And I really love this Brava worsted yarn because it has really good stitch definition. You'll see in another square that I hold up, but I'm really glad that this yarn is working, because what's the point of having a stitch sampler blanket if you can't see all of the beautiful stitches? So yeah. This square worked up pretty quickly and I really enjoyed it. And all of the squares kind of have this single crochet border so that they're easier to seam together. So that's good. And I had to do like a little bit of math to figure out how to get the appropriate number of stitches along each side. But yeah, I really love this bias square in the cream, and I think it looks so nice in the cream. So one thing about me, I know everybody has like different preferences, but I like to wait until all the squares are done before I block them and weave in my ends. So things are a little haphazard over here, but that's just the way it is. I kind of like to do things in batches. So crochet everything first, then weave in all the ends, then do all the blocking, then do all the seaming, because in my mind that just seems a little bit more efficient. I'm sure in reality it ultimately takes about the same amount of time, but that's just kind of how my brain works. So the second square that I made is called the Smock stitch square. So yeah, this one is made in the silver and it's absolutely gorgeous, but I'm kind of like, at what cost? So I'm not going to lie, I didn't particularly enjoy making this square. It had a lot of new to me techniques in there, and Tony has like really wonderful videos, tutorials for each square that are very helpful. So I was able to catch on eventually, but I found that the square worked up pretty slowly. So I started this square, I think Tuesday night. I didn't really get that far into it because honestly, this entire week, I've just been exhausted. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but I've been going to bed a lot earlier than I usually do, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. But on Tuesday night, I didn't get as far into it as I wanted, so I picked it back up on Wednesday night, and so I guess Tuesday I had done about 4 inches on this, so each square is supposed to be about 11.5 inches, like 11.5 by 11.5 before you add the border. So that way the border will make it 12 by 12 inches. So I had done about 4 inches on this square Tuesday night. And then, so I wanted to finish it on Wednesday night. And I remember I was watching the vice presidential debate, which was an hour and a half long. And I was convinced that I would be able to finish the square by the time that debate was over. But the debate ended and I was still working on the square. And it was probably a good half hour after the debate was over before I finally finished it. So I was like, oh my gosh, like how long does this take? But it is gorgeous, so I do think it was worth the effort. But like, it kind of made me I think I'm a process crocheter, right? Or maker. So they're kind of like process makers who enjoy the actual process of making their objects, like the actual crochet stitches, the actual knit stitches. And then there are like the product makers who really enjoy having like the finished product. So I think I have like both of those at certain times, but I'm definitely am a process. I think I'm mostly process because I want to actually enjoy what I'm making. And I just didn't enjoy making this square, but it's beautiful. But that's just kind of my rant about that. I have too many pattern tests going to join this cow, but your squares are making it so tempting. You should definitely join. So I am trying to keep up with the pace of the tea cow by doing the 4 squares a week, which is a very tall order. It's tough. I didn't think I was going to make it this week. I technically haven't made it this week because I still have one more square to finish, but she releases the patterns on Mondays. So I have the rest of today and tomorrow to try to finish up that 4th square. But, you know, those patterns are always going to be on Tony's blog. She also has the PDF for it. So I do think it's a really good project if like you've been wanting to learn Tunisian crochet or like improve your skills. I definitely think it's a good project for that. And it is fun, like doing it along with everybody else. I've been following the hashtag and that's been keeping me inspired. But yeah, totally understand if you don't have enough time to join right now, but I would add it to your list, add it to your queue, because I think it's definitely worthwhile. Very pretty. That stitch is lovely in the silver. Yeah, I am really happy with how it looks in the silver. Like, it looks very, very good. I really like it. I think it looks better in this than it would have looked in like the cream or any of the other colors. Another thing with this square is okay, so gauge isn't provided on the patterns, just the measurements, which I completely understand because if I were Tony, I could not imagine trying to do like 20 different gauge swatches. Like that's just a hard pass. So when I initially did this square with like the recommended number of chain stitches, it was like 2 inches longer than it was supposed to be. And I know that like with standard crochet, your rows kind of tend to shrink as you go further along, but I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case with the Tunisian crochet. So I actually took about 4 stitches off, and that might have been a mistake. And that is why this is looking a little bit more rectangular than square. So I should have just trusted Tony and stuck with the original stitch count, but I think it will be okay. So I'm not going to stress about it. I'll just keep that in mind for the other 18 squares that I have to do, so it's fine. I think this will be the first project I do with my new Tunisian hooks. Yes, I saw that you ordered a Tunisian set and some knitting needles, so you're gonna try to learn both. I'm so excited. I love it when people learn new things. That's like kind of my thing. So, but yeah, I do think this would be a good first project. Each square, at least out of like the 4 that I've done so far, has like a different technique. So it's a lot of learning. I think there are very few squares in this where it's kind of like, where you can like completely zone out. So it's a lot of learning, but it's also fun, except for the Smock stitch square. I didn't like that one, but yeah, I think it'll be a good first project for sure. And then, all right, finally ready to move on past that square. The 3rd square that I did is the seed stitch square, and I just finished this up last night. If you were following along in my Instagram stories, I kind of made it an impromptu goal of mine to finish this so that I could talk about it today, and I actually was able to finish it. I was worried because knowing how long it took for the Smock stitch square to work up, I was worried that this one was going to take as long. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this, but I was. So yeah, this is the seed stitch square, and it is kind of made by alternating Tunisian knit stitch and Tunisian purl stitch. So I was already familiar with Tunisian knit stitch because it was used in a couple of the other projects that I'm working on, but Tunisian purl stitch was new to me, and I was kind of worried about having to, because long story short, Tunisian purl stitch, you have to have your working yarn in front of your hook. Tunisian knit stitch, it needs to be in the back of your hook. So having to switch from front to back like that definitely does take a little bit of time. And I'm also learning how to knit. And I know for me, switching between knit stitch and purl stitch takes a lot of time, especially when you're doing it like every single stitch. And so that's why I was worried that this square was going to take forever to work up. But it actually worked up pretty quickly, and I really like it. It's a very subtle texture. I think some of these other squares have a little bit more texture to them, but I actually think that's good because it kind of gives the other squares a time, like their time to shine, and kind of gives a balance, because like if all 20 squares were super high texture, super colorful, and all of that, it would kind of be overwhelming to look at, in my opinion. So this square is definitely kind of on the more low to medium texture side, but I still really like it because I think that it will add a lot of things to the blanket. And then I think this one actually came out a little too large. I think it's closer to 12.5 inches than 12 inches. So seaming all of these squares together is definitely going to be interesting. I'm trying to like stack them on top of each other so that y'all can see the size difference. But blocking is a thing. Yeah, the seed stitch square is quite a bit bigger than the other two, but blocking is a thing. So I'm just going to have faith that it's going to be okay. We're not going to stress about it. Where is it? And then the last square that I've barely started on, like last night, it was like 10:30, 11 p.m. and I was determined to start on this square so that I could show it to y'all, because this is one of the squares that made me really want to make this blanket, and all of my yarn is tangled right now, so just give me a second. One day I'll learn to have all of my projects out without tangling my yarn, but that day is not today. It's not today. Actually, I think I'm good. I think we're good. All right, so this is the beginnings of the block stitch square. So I finally got to pull out my color B, which is Caution, and oh my gosh, it looks so good. Y'all know that this kind of like block or geometric thing is right up my alley. I have a couple of designs that kind of use a brick pattern, so this is definitely right up my alley, and I love the way it's working up, and I love how these colors are going together, and I'm just like so excited about this one. So essentially how this one's constructed, it's primarily Tunisian simple stitch, which like I said is like the most basic Tunisian crochet stitch. And then to kind of get these are like post stitches. I'm trying to remember what exactly the stitch is called, but it's like an extra long front post double crochet or something. It's like a really long stitch name, and you're basically kind of going down 3 rows and then making sure that you get the height of the stitch back up to the row that you're working on. So I really like how this square is going, and this is the last square that was released this week, so I'm gonna try to finish this definitely by tomorrow. I'd like to finish it tonight, but we'll see how that goes, so that way I will be completely caught up and ready to do the next 4 squares next week when they're released on Monday. So yeah, this is probably my favorite square out of the 4 that were released this week. Let's see. Yes, blocking is our friend. Yes, blocking covers a multitude of sins. Like, I have saved so many projects just by blocking them. Like, I really need for everybody to embrace blocking, because blocking is our friend. Blocking is definitely our friend. I've not blocked a project before. I need to. I made a shawl and some earrings that need it. Yeah, I think that shawls especially really benefit from blocking. It kind of depends. I don't necessarily think that like every single project needs to be blocked, but I would say garments definitely need to be blocked, shawls definitely need to be blocked, and anything that kind of has like a lacy type pattern, because that will kind of get the stitches to even out a little bit, and it'll just look so much nicer. And then it's the earrings too. So I've made a couple of earrings and I didn't actually block them. I just sprayed like that stiffening spray on them, which I'm wondering if they would have benefited from blocking, because now that I've worn them a few times, they're kind of like irregularly shaped, and I'm wondering if they would have held their shape a little bit more if they had been actually pinned down properly. So I've been meaning to make some more earrings. I really like crochet earrings. Micro crochet is like pretty fun. So, and they work up so quickly. So that might be something that I need to experiment with, if like pinning the earrings down actually helps. And then another thing I think benefits from blocking is blanket squares, like I'm talking about now, because that makes them easier to seam together, because it's difficult to seam things together that are all different sizes. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. Anyway, all right, steam blocking is so therapeutic. Yes, so confession, I've never actually steam blocked anything before. I was a little confused about which fibers you should wet block and which fibers you should steam block, but I've since learned that steam blocking is best for acrylic. I guess since like acrylic is basically a form of plastic, having like that heat will like relax the fiber a little bit and it actually block. So in the past I had wet blocked acrylic, and then I was like, why? Like initially it would be like to the dimensions and like the shape that I had blocked it out to. But then after a while it would revert back to what it originally was, and I didn't understand that. But yeah, we're going to be steam blocking these squares, and I have a steamer, everything's fine, so I'm actually really excited to steam block. But I've definitely done wet blocking a lot of times, and I really enjoy that too, because I have like this nice no rinse soap and it smells really good, and it gets all like bubbly and stuff, so it's just like a full like sensory experience. So I really like wet blocking too, but I'm excited to try steam blocking. Let's see, steam blocking is my favorite. It's the only kind of blocking I do. Yeah, all right, so it seems like we have some good reviews for steam blocking. So man, now I'm like excited to try it. I know I said at the beginning that I was going to wait until like I had all the squares done and do like this big blocking session, but I'm like nervous about wow, words are hard, y'all. Words are hard. I'm nervous about my Smock stitch square, just because the dimensions are so off. So I've been very tempted to just go ahead and block this one so that I feel better about my life, but I don't know. I don't really feel like pulling my blocking mats out. I have a lot of them now, and it's just kind of a lot. But anyway, looking forward to the blocking process for sure. Let's see. So yeah, the next 4 squares that are coming out are the home square, the lacy shell square, the mitered square, and the lattice stitch square. So those are going to be interesting. I know for a fact that the mitered square has some color work, and the home square has some stranded color work. It has like the word home, like HOME, spelled out using stranded color work. So that'll be interesting. Excited for those, and hopefully they work up a little quicker than the ones that I did this week. Ooh, that's such a pretty stitch. Yeah, this one is gorgeous, and the silver yarn really brings it out a lot. So it came out really well, but making it was kind of a whole thing. But yeah. So I think that's all that I had to say about this project. I did kind of almost give up on it in the middle of the week. Just kind of like low motivation. Like I said, I've been a little tired this week, and I think that was part of it. And it does seem like this, like the 4 squares per week is definitely a little time consuming. I think I'm averaging about 2 hours per square. So I kind of anticipated this, but it would be nice to have a little bit of time to work on some of my other projects. And so kind of just trying to find that balance. But at the same time, I do want to like keep up with the pace, but there's only so much I can do. So we're just going to see how things progress as we go through the next 5 weeks. But it seems like week 1 went really well, and I'm on track to finish this 4th square by Monday. So we're just going to keep it moving, and we're just going to see what happens. And then as far as the yarn goes, I really love this Bravo worsted. I think it might be like my new favorite acrylic yarn. I really like making blankets, and so I use quite a bit of acrylic yarn, and I have like a lot of acrylic yarn in my stash. And this comes in a lot of different colors, and it's just so smooth. Like, it was really smooth, just like gliding off my hook. I have wooden Tunisian crochet hooks, and I've had some other yarns kind of get snagged on them, but this one didn't. And it doesn't split at all, and it just feels really soft and nice. So I am looking into using this for some other projects. And yeah, that's the holiday tea cow. Literally talked about it for half an hour. So that's where we're at. But I do have a couple of other projects that I managed to work on miraculously. So this is another TL Yarn Crafts pattern. It's the Party Punch Shawl, and it's also Tunisian crochet. And the yarn that I'm using is Sorella yarn. This is the sock yarn, and the colorway is called Maui. So I have a little progress keeper here. So this is where I was when I talked about it. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before last week. And so I've done all of this since the last time I showed it to y'all. And so this is the type of shawl. It's it only uses 1 skein of fingering weight yarn, and you kind of just work. You repeat like the same 2 rows over and over until you have 10 grams of yarn left, and then you do a couple of rows to finish it off. So when I showed it to y'all last week, I had 69 grams of yarn remaining in this skein. So that means that I had used, math, 31 grams for the shawl. Now I have 52 grams of yarn remaining, which means that I've used 48. So I'm basically halfway done with the shawl now. And it works up pretty quickly. It doesn't take too long to get from one row to the other. And it's a boomerang shawl, so I'm not sure if I'm holding this correctly, but you can kind of see that it has like this nice curve to it, and it'll really open up once it's blocked, because I've seen finished pictures of it, and in Tony's blog post about it, she like really emphasizes the importance of blocking it. So I'm excited to see how much it grows when it's blocked. So that's the Party Punch Shawl. Pretty straightforward project. Not too much to say about that one. Let's see. Is sock yarn a weight or type of yarn? I saw a project that required sock yarn because of the stretch, so I was a bit confused. So somebody like correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that sock yarn is another word for like a size 1 yarn, so it could also be called like a fingering weight yarn. When people say sock yarn in particular, the yarn that's like usually used to knit socks with usually has some nylon in it. So it might be like a 75-25 or like an 80-20 wool to nylon blend. And my understanding is that the nylon kind of makes the socks more durable, since like you'll be wearing them on your feet. But in terms of like gauge and wraps per inch and things like that, it's the same as like a regular old size 1 yarn or like a fingering weight yarn. So if we're just talking about, like, for example, like a merino wool yarn, a like regular size 1 or fingering weight might be 100% superwash merino wool, whereas something that's labeled as a sock yarn might be like 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. So long answer short, they're like the same weight, but sock yarn is usually used to refer to something that has a little bit of nylon in it. So I think this yarn in particular this one has a little bit of cashmere in it. So I know it's like 10% cashmere, 80%, no, 70%, yeah. 10% cashmere, 70% superwash merino, 20% nylon. I think that's how it's split up. I was like trying to like do the math in my head to make sure that it added up to 100. But yeah, that's my understanding of like what sock yarn is. So like for this shawl, I could have easily just used like a 100% superwash merino yarn and it would have been just fine. But I really liked this colorway, and the only fingering weight yarn that Sorella yarn had was labeled as a sock yarn, technically. So I hope that was helpful. I'm not like an expert on it, but that's kind of like my understanding of it. Drink of water. Okay. And then the last project that I managed to work on this week is my Soundwave shawl. So this, I dropped it. So this is wow, it's getting really big. I did not have to lean back this far last week to show it off, but this is the Soundwave shawl designed by Stephanie Aaron. So my main color is LaRue Cotton Tinsel Fingering. Tinsel is a plant fiber, and the colorway is called After the Rain. And then my mohair, so like these kind of like gray white stripes that are in between, are mohair, and that is Sorella yarn mohair and the colorway Voyager. So I have a progress keeper on this one too. It was on this side. So this is, okay, this is tricky. So this is where I was when I showed it to y'all last week. So I've done, what is that, like 4 rows? 1, 2, 5 rows? I did quite a bit. And so I'm currently on row 26 out of 44. So definitely making some progress, but each row increases by like 10 stitches. So the rows are already very long, and it takes quite a bit of time to get from one end to the other. But I really enjoy the shawl. I'm really excited to finish it up, and it's gonna be huge. Like, you can tell it's already really big. So I'm excited to see what the final measurements are going to be. And I'm also, since we've been talking a lot about blocking today, I'm also really excited to see how the tinsel and the mohair are gonna block out, because tinsel's a plant fiber, mohair is an animal fiber. So I'm interested to see how that's going to turn out. But no matter what, it's going to be great for sure. And it looks like I do have a little bit of yarn barf going on over here. So I think I'm about to run into a tangle, but it's going to be a while before I'm able to get back to this project anyway. So we will cross that bridge when we get there. Let's see. It was, thanks. Okay, good. I'm glad that my little sock yarn explanation was helpful. Oh, it's turning out so well. Thank you. I'm like so excited about it. And the colors are like looking really good together. I think I mentioned in episode 1 that I was like really, because obviously I bought these yarns from like 2 different dyers. And so I was like just going off of like computer pictures. And so I was really nervous that the colors weren't going to go together, but then I started working it up and it's just like, oh my gosh, like every time I look at it I get so excited. Like even right now I'm just like, like this might be like one of my favorite makes once it's done. Let's see. I'm probably going to need to make that shawl. I love shawls that I can wear over my shoulders and wrap around like a small blanket. Yes, I definitely think that this will be that type of shawl once it's finished. Okay, I'm not going to do that because the yarn is getting tangled. But yeah, I can say that it's already wrapping around my shoulders pretty well. And I think I was hearing some of the testers say that like since the way it's shaped, since it's not just a triangle shawl, there's a little bit more coverage on your arms when you wrap it around. So it actually will kind of be like a small blanket. And it's really lightweight as well. But I think if there's like a slight breeze, it'll kind of help with that. I live in a very warm climate, so I tend to gravitate towards things that are a little more lightweight so that I don't spontaneously combust. So yeah, all in all, just really excited about the Soundwave shawl. I knew, like when I saw it and I like saw all the different color combinations that people were doing, I knew that I was gonna have to make it. So yeah, couldn't be happier with how it's turning out. Apparently I have not completely mastered English, even though it's my first and only language, so forgive me, struggling a little bit today. I'm in SoCal, so I totally understand that. Yeah, like not really a winter to speak of in those areas. I live in Houston, Texas. So heat and humidity is kind of the law of the land here. And there was like a brief moment a couple weeks ago where it was in the high 50s in the morning and it was glorious. But now the highs are kind of approaching like the high 80s, low 90s again. And so I'm like, I thought it was fall, but spoke too soon. But it's fine. It'll be cool for like 5 days out of the year. And we will enjoy those 5 days and embrace them. But they're just not here yet. All right. So those 3 projects were the only things that I managed to work on this week. Like I said, the tea-cal is taking up like most of my time. So for the past few weeks, there have been a few what I'm calling inactive whips that I've been wanting to talk about. And these are projects that I have, I was working on really well, really consistently at some point, and then I got uninspired and I got kind of set to the side. And it just so happens that all of these projects are designs that I was trying to work on. So I'm kind of, let's see, it's already 1:38, so I'm kind of thinking that I'm only going to have time to talk about one of them, but that's still better than none. So you might have seen this on my feed if you've been around for a while, but this is what I'm calling my, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to hold up all 4 at once. Struggling today. But this is what I'm calling my geometric etc. So it's a coaster set, and they're each a different shape. So there's a circle, a square, a hexagon, and a octagon. Let's see. Have you always lived in Texas? I often wonder how people in hot climates even develop an interest in yarn crafts, LOL. Okay, so I have not always lived in Texas, but Texas is where I claim I'm from. So my dad was in the military, and so I moved around a lot as a kid, and Texas is the last place that we ended up. And it's like where I graduated high school, where I went to college. So when people ask me where I'm from, I say that I'm from Texas. It is kind of interesting how we end up interested in the yarn crafts. But I will say it definitely helps that we have air conditioning here. I know that not every place in the United States or in the world has air conditioning. And so I could wear whatever I wanted indoors. But I do kind of still try to dress for the season. So I don't really have a lot of like winter clothing. I have like one jacket. I don't have any hats. I have scarves, but they're not particularly heavy, so that's why like all the shawls that I make are fingering weight. So yeah, it's definitely still possible to knit and crochet if you live in a warmer climate. It just looks a little differently. And I'm just glad that there are so many designers out there who design, whether it be like intentionally or unintentionally, for those of us who live in warmer or like more humid climates. So it's been great for sure. Let's see. I avoid blankets, sweaters, and other large projects when it's hot out. Yeah, that's fair. I haven't really found that I have issues like crocheting something that's like larger or heavier in warmer weather. But I'm always inside when I'm crocheting, and I'm always cold, first of all. I'm a little chilly like right now, actually. Like I'm just always cold. So it takes a lot for me to get like overheated and things like that. So I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy like the warmer climate in Texas, is because I'm always cold to begin with. So it doesn't like bother me as much. But yeah, I definitely understand why people wouldn't want to work on like those bulkier, heavier, warmer projects when it's already hot outside. Lots of cotton yarn projects in warmer areas too. Yes, so whenever I can, I try to make my garments out of cotton yarn. So this is cotton, because it's just a lot more breathable. I eventually am going to make something out of wool, like a garment out of wool, and I'm interested to see how much I overheat wearing a wool garment, because I feel like that's definitely a thing. So let's see. Me too, but I'm always warm, and my mom's house relied on a swamp cooler, so too hot to do those. Yeah, I feel that. Like definitely kind of like an individual preference. You know, some of us run colder, some of us run warmer, so it's just what it is. But me personally, I don't really have issues. I can crochet whatever I want any time of year, as long as I'm inside. And I'm kind of like an indoor person anyway. I'm not very like outdoorsy or adventurous, so I'm inside like 95% of the time anyway, so it doesn't really make much of a difference to me. All right, so yeah, geometric, etc. Coaster set, four different shapes, and honestly I have most of the pattern written up. I kind of have to like put it in a nice format and you know, make sure that it's using all of the appropriate abbreviations and things like that. But I got a little held up because I wanted to release different modifications for it. So one of the modifications were face scrubbies, so they're just a little bit smaller. And then I also, let's see, where is it? I also wanted to do like a dishcloth and a pot holder and a placemat. So I was cranking these out, and then all the Ravelry business happened, which not going to go into detail about that here because I could rant about that forever. But it kind of made me not want to design things anymore. Let's see, I've heard wool is also moisture wicking, but I haven't tried it myself, so I'm interested to hear how it goes for you. Okay, yeah, I will definitely try to post about my experiences with a wool garment. I haven't picked out a pattern that I want to use with wool. It probably will be something that's like designed to be warmer. But like I said, we have like such mild winters here that like even if I wear it like in January, there's a pretty high chance that I would overheat in it. So it'll be like a little experiment. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, the thing with the coasters is that my initial plan was to release each shape and all of its modifications in one PDF. So like all of like the circles, all of the hexagons, all of the squares, all of the octagons. But now I'm thinking that I should just release like the coasters. So like the circle, square, octagon, hexagon in one PDF, and then have all of these other modifications as like cheaper add-ons. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. So hopefully there will be a tester call for the coasters pretty soon. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I'm hoping that by talking about it, there will be a little bit of like accountability, I guess. I'm kind of like speaking it into existence, or that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to speak it into existence. So yeah, hopefully there will be a tester call out for these soon. Did not talk about the yarn I'm using. So I'm using Rico's Creative Cotton, 100% cotton, worsted weight, definitely a lighter worsted. I honestly think it could pass as a DK. And the cream color is called Natural, and then the navy is called Navy. So very creative names there. All right, so I did have another project that I wanted to talk about, but I'm kind of thinking, let's see, it's 1:47 right now, so I have 13 minutes left technically, but I do try to wrap up with 5 minutes left, and so I don't think I'm gonna have enough time to talk about that project. So we are going to save it for another time, and I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up here. And this one will just be a little bit shorter than my previous ones, which is good. I wasn't really thrilled about constantly doing podcasts that were an hour long, so it's good that this one will be a little bit shorter. Cracking up at the creative names, lol. Like, okay, I think I have like varying stances on like yarn names, because on the one hand, I think I do appreciate when the manufacturer tries to be a little creative, but then on the other hand, I'm like, just call it what it is. It's black. Like it's black yarn. Like just call it what it is. But it kind of, I think there's like a balance between like being too creative and being too straightforward. So I remember I was at a craft store one time and I saw this variegated yarn that was like red, blue, and green or something like that. And it was literally called red, blue, green. And I found that like so funny. I don't know why. I was like, y'all couldn't come up with something a little better for a variegated yarn. I don't know. That's probably just me. I have like weird little things that bother me like that. So disregard if you think I'm like crazy. So anyway, that's how you know it's time for me to get off of this live. I'm kind of just spiraling a little bit. But yeah, anyway, thank y'all so much for joining me today. I had so much fun. Really enjoyed talking about blocking and yarn names and the merits of cotton over wool. I always like appreciate when people come and it can be like more of a conversation instead of me just speaking into the void. I think I'd be terrible at coming up with names as a yarn dyer. Honestly, same. And I think I would especially have issues with the variegated yarns. Like I just made fun that one yarn, but like I don't know if I would be able to do much better, if I'm being perfectly honest. Yeah, red, blue, green. That's what I'd call it. So yeah, I always like really admire like the entire creative process behind like yarn dyeing, because not only are you coming up with the actual colorways, you're also coming up with like the name of it, and how it's gonna be presented. So I just have so much respect for like the entire creative process around yarn dyeing. So yeah, I probably like shouldn't make fun of red, blue, green, because what would I call it? What would I call it? Anyway, so yeah, thank y'all so much for joining me live here today. Had so much fun as always. So the replay is going to be up on IGTV shortly after this. Give me about 10 minutes. And the video is going to be up on YouTube tomorrow, or at the very earliest later tonight. So if you're watching this on IGTV, I would really appreciate if you like, comment, and share it to your stories. It really helps me out a lot. If you're watching this on YouTube, I would love it if you like, comment, and especially subscribe. Subscribing is probably the single most thing that you can do to help me get the word out about the podcast, because I really enjoy making this podcast and I want other people to be able to enjoy it too. Let's see, love your top. Thank you so much. So this is the armored tee designed by LaRue Crochet in LaRue cotton, and this colorway is called Sprig of Lavender. So I really like it. Nice and lightweight cotton, like I was saying. So yeah, really like the top. RBG to be fancy. Yes, like do like ambiguous initials. Make it fancy, make it fancy. Thanks, Drea. You're welcome, Kendra. Thanks for coming, and I'm so glad that everybody's enjoying it. So yeah, episode 5 is going to be same time, same place, Saturday, October 17th, 2020, live here on Instagram at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and then uploaded to IGTV and YouTube shortly after. So I'm gonna go ahead and go now. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in, whether you're watching this live or watching it later. I hope you have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your week, and happy making. Bye.